Good morning, everyone. It's been actually a few days since we sat here at this table together and looked at crochet projects and talked about life and what's happening here at Winterbrick. Let me catch you up on what's happening here and the reason it's been a few days when I've been absent. On Tuesday, I think we were together on Tuesday. Anyway, on Tuesday afternoon, my mother had an appointment with a vascular specialist. Well, it turns out he put her in the hospital to do some tests and kept her there. And then they went for a procedure to try to open up some of the arteries that are giving a problem with circulation to the arm. This, remember, starts out from radiation damage done 40 years ago. So while I expected to be home at about 4:30 or so on Tuesday afternoon, instead we were in the hospital ER, waiting and waiting and waiting, as indeed has to happen in ERs. So finally, they began to do some of the testing, and then kept her there, and had a vascular surgeon come in and evaluate everything, and he thought there was a chance of opening some of these arteries again, either by going up through the groin or up through the arm. You know, it's kind of like going in the back door or going in the front door. So on Tuesday afternoon, he attempted this procedure, and going up through the groin didn't work, partly because at age 97, you know, the body's a bit contorted, and the arteries are not in their normal smooth flowing path in many people. So he couldn't get to the problem area that way. And they were really good. They kept us informed all the way through the procedure by the telephone and by sending someone out to tell us what was happening as the whole family was there in the waiting room. And anyway, he couldn't go in that way, so he tried going in through the groin. And they warned us, you know, that this would take an hour, not through the groin, through the arm itself, that this would take an hour or an hour and a half, and not to be alarmed if it took longer. Okay, well, then finally he came out and asked the family if they'd want to talk in another room, so we went in there. And you know, that's never good news, because good news they'll just tell you in front of everybody and then have a more detailed discussion later in private. But so we went in there, and it was not successful. He was not able to get there because going up through the arm, he could get to the area where the blockage is, but that whole area was so heavily radiated that it's now sort of like a brick. The arteries like a brick and occluded, and the flesh around it is like that whole area. You know, we've got our own little walking Chernobyl here in a sense. So that was not successful at all. So he said the only chance is to have another surgeon evaluate this, and they would do that together the next morning. So, all right. And the next morning they duly had their consult with one another, and they're conferring with one another, and then a consult with us. And there is just no way where this is, that at her age and in her condition, etc., that kind of massive surgery could be done. It would be taking arteries right as it would be rerouting the arteries even from her heart on into her arm, and you know, she wouldn't withstand the operation, first of all. And secondly, through that kind of now almost petrified flesh. It's almost like stone in a way. There's no guarantee that they would continue to function properly for very long anyway, or at all. So that is out. So we're now at the point of simply pain management and wound care, because there is this big ulcer right in the crook of her elbow. And it looks just like a radiation ulcer. You know, it's perfectly round and deep. And getting that to heal with no blood flow is not a likely thing. So this is where we are. Just telling you the history, in this instance, of caregiving. So finally, we know we know for certain there's nothing more procedure-wise that can be done. So we're handling that, and she came back home then on Friday. On Saturday, the whole family convened for the holiday gathering, all except two of the little grandchildren, who are at such a darling age. I wish my mother could have seen them, but one of them came down with flu, and so they kept the girls at home, you know, not wanting to bring her the flu on top of everything else. And we have exercises to do to try to get blood flow to that arm, but it's tough because the exercises really hurt and cause a lot of discomfort. So we'll see. That's where all that sits. But needless to say, I was at the hospital from early morning to late at night and did not get to be here chatting with you. Now, we left off on the crochet work with this this piece of beautiful thick fabric that we made that started out to be a scarf, but I would like to stop it right here and turn it into a handbag. However, it's a matter of getting what's needed for the handles and a magnetic clasp for it. So I'm going to just set this aside. Needless to say, I was not able to go shopping either at any of the craft stores, yarn stores, or even online. So we're going to just set that aside. And I'll show you what I did have at the hospital with me. Didn't get much of a chance to do anything there. But a few years ago, I made a hat for myself, which I just loved, and I just kind of freelanced it. I ad-libbed it as I went along. I made the pattern up as I went along. And I wore it a lot for several years. And it was just made of regular sort of all-purpose yarn. It was black, and I liked it a lot, but I think I may have told you this. I lost it. I think I probably put it in my pocket when I was grocery shopping or something of that kind. It probably fell out, and I never knew it. So if someone found it and is even wearing it, power to them. I'm happy. I hope it's somewhere getting some use, because it was really comfy. You could pull it way down over your ears, or you could leave it up like a tam. So I thought, well, I never wrote that pattern down as I did it. I didn't copy it, so I don't have it. But I'll tell you, I pretty much remember it, and I know what it to be like anyway. It's really an oversized tam, which I wore sort of as a slouch hat. And what I did, and I started this, I remembered what I did with that yarn, that I have so much left quite a bit left from 4 different skeins. And it was just it was a Red Heart, Red Heart Super Saver. And those are good in that there's no dye lot on them. So everything you get, whenever you get it, matches. I had made a rug for my sister, using four skeins, four pieces of yarn at once. Well, needless to say, for a tam, I'm just using one. So what I did the slip knot, and I did 4 chains, and then did a slip stitch to put them together. Then I started half double crocheting inside of that. And I just did it until it was kind of stuffed full. I didn't even count on this. And I haven't counted all the way through on this. So you can certainly try that if you like. I'm telling you what I did, and now from now on, as I finish it with you, I'll relay it to you as we go. And when you do this, sometimes you have to back up, take out, back up, and do a row or two over, but so far that hasn't been the case. All right, so I filled that, and then I started going in the next row. I'm going just straight around. I'm not doing the slip stitches together row by row, and then the chain, and then starting another row. I'm just going round and round and round and round. And we'll handle the like this. This is what you get. You always have one row in process right here. You can see that. And your other row that you're working into is down here. So you don't have it coming out together, but we will handle that in the end as we go along. Meanwhile, and this is just a very casual little project. So in the next row, I did a double crochet, and then 2, and then 2, and a double crochet into. I began increasing like we have in our other hat. And you can increase as much as you want. You don't want it to get floppy going up and down, but you want it to be able to lie flat. And you can see this lies perfectly flat. Then I would do a row just going around in those, and then I would do an increase row. Basically, the increase pattern was 2 in 1 stitch, and then 3 stitches. 2 in 1 stitch and 3 stitches all the way around. And then, your next row, just filling in from those. So right now, this goes with this project over here. I'll put that over here. Right now, this needs to be probably about that wide. Let's see how wide that is. And as you can see, I am doing this literally ad lib. I'm making it up as I go along. It's presently 8.5 inches. I would say we will want it to be a good 11.5, maybe 12. So we need to keep going for a few more rows here. So let's just begin and do a couple of rows. And then I'll probably have to stop and get lunch for my mother. When you are a caregiver like this, your time is not your own, and you know that when you go into it. Now and then you are very much reminded of it again. But oh, nothing like a cup of tea and a little sit down here. I'm also doing loads of laundry today. I had a mountain of laundry stacked up again. Okay, so let's keep going here for a little way. I'm having to take a moment here to check whether the row I left off on, yes, that was an increase row, so let's just keep going around normally here. So we're just doing the half double crochet all over this. And I so liked this hat because you could wear it like a very large tam, or what I usually did was pull it down over my ears. So one of the exercises she has to do to try to increase circulation is squeezing well, the doctor said a tennis ball, but there's no way right now. Her hands are so small that she can squeeze a tennis ball. So when my brother and his wife came down for the holiday gathering, they brought her one of those little tiny squeezy footballs. Well, she's forever got it rolling around the floor up there now in her room. I've discovered that in the day and a half since they've been here. So I tell her she keeps having fumbles. But even it right now is a little bit too firm, even though it's one of those soft little squeezy things. So she says, well, why can't I have a ball of yarn? You had some red yarn in here. So I gave her the last of them. It's a ball about this big, and you can see how you can really squeeze on it, squeeze that. And so I gave her that one. I have all these other skeins left here, so that's fine. I tell you, waiting around all day in hospitals, that is a tiring, I find, task. You're not doing anything, but I kind of think it's also, hospitals are, do you ever notice there's always that whir? It's like from all the lights, the equipment that's in every room and every hallway, there's always something that's just like in a hospital. And I think that's part of what, even though you're not necessarily consciously aware of it at the time, I think that's part of what is so very tiring. It tires out the mind and the body. So even though the whole thing was not successful, I'm glad we did it. We ruled out things that we would have always regretted not having tried had we not done it. We had snow here. A couple of inches, not a lot, not like the rest of the country's getting, or much of the rest of the country is getting. But it did snow, a good 2 inches, maybe closer to 3. So yesterday morning I had to do a bit of shoveling and clear off the cars and so on. Oh, and I have so much crocheting I've got these, I keep getting requests. I'm sure you do too. Yes, our next row will definitely be an increase row. My niece wants a messy bun hat, which I told her I would make for her. And if I do one for her, I'll have to do one for my other niece as well, from another sibling here. And they're about the same age, and they're both very young professional women, so I'm sure they would enjoy a messy bun hat, like for weekends or getting back and forth from hither and yon in the winter anytime. And my mother wants a shrug, something easy to put over her. Sleeves are beginning to be difficult. Sleeves as in regular jackets and things. So if I make her a shrug, that will be much easier. So we've got a shrug, 2 messy bun hats, and I have a friend who's recently had surgery for brain cancer. And she has all her stitches out and so forth, but and she's going to begin her chemo this week. Yay. So anyway, I think a good hat's in order there too. I've never been one for making oodles of hats and caps, but here we are this time, so. Yes. I've chosen, I might tell you this so you can look it up and do the same thing. Well, I'll tell you that the next time because I left the number for it upstairs. I found a pattern last night when I was looking on the computer for a little bit just to kind of unwind before going to bed. A pattern for a very easy shrug, and I'll tell you about that. It's a free pattern online. It's a Lion Brand, using a Lion Brand yarn, and since I now don't have much chance to go out and shop, I did find the yarn for it on, actually this one was on Amazon, I think. And in this morning's paper, actually it wasn't this morning's paper, it was last Saturday's paper. But there's a big sale on yarn at Michael's right now between Christmas Eve and December 30th. Maybe before the end of the week I'll be able to run into Michael's for a bit and look around. It was, I think, 55% off all yarns. That's very good. I need some more markers too, markers, because when you go all the way around like this, it's harder to tell where you want to start your next row as increasing. At a glance, you can always figure it out from your stitches, but at a glance it's more difficult. So, speaking of hospitals always have things running. I don't know if you heard that, but that was the printer simply talking to itself over there. So I will get you the number for that pattern, and that's one of the next projects we could make together. Oh, I'll tell you something funny, and then we better quit. In that, for right now, I'll come down. Maybe I'll even get another session in today. That would be good. I would love to keep working on this. This is something I will use. I'll just use it on not a daily basis, but kind of almost. But ever so quickly. As we were all waiting in the hospital, and I said to my sister, whose daughter it is, my niece, who I'm going to make one of the messy bun hats for, I asked her, I said, does she have a messy bun hat? And my sister says, a what? And I told this to her then when she was here, to my niece, when she was here for the holiday dinner, and she says, you mean you knew what a messy bun hat was and my mother didn't? And I said, yeah. She was just flabbergasted at that. But you know what that secretly tells you? That the young people have a perception about age that one never thinks of in regard to themselves. Never, ever. I don't think of myself as any older than my sister, though I am. There's about 15 years difference between us. Oh, even a little more actually. But to me, that doesn't feel like anything to nieces and nephews and so forth. Watching the former generation, they perceive it differently. So we're getting our comeuppance here. All right, here's the hat to date this far, and I'm going to stop on this one, and I will see you later.